welcome to another episode of the Pursuing Greatness podcast, the place experts share their wisdom on living well by mastering health, wealth, relationships, and spirit. Before we get started, I want to let you know that the best way to support the show is just to subscribe, like, and share this episode with your friends and family. Also, if you'd like to learn more about how to master life, check out our website at pursuinggreatnesspodcast.com. With that said, I hope you enjoy the episode. We have a very special guest with us today, so grab your pen and paper and enjoy the journey.
All right, and we are live. Today we have with us Ben Brearley. Ben is a leader, MBA, and qualified coach from Australia who runs an online business called Thoughtful Leader. Ben's coaching and online courses help other leaders build confidence, lead more effectively, and fix their team issues by leading more thoughtfully. Ben, thank you very much for hopping on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm very well. Thanks, Gabe, for having me on.
Absolutely. To get everybody started, why don't you tell everyone what you do and how you got started down that path in the first place?
Yeah, so I run a online business called Thoughtful Leader, which is a solo business at the moment. Also doing that on the side with my day job, but pretty much mornings, evenings, weekends, I do leadership coaching through coaching sessions, and I also create online courses as well to help leaders build confidence and lead a bit more thoughtfully. The way I put it, and practice more thoughtful leadership to create better workplaces.
Awesome. I love it. How'd you get started down that path?
So I've been obviously working for about 18 or so years in total. Started off doing technical software development roles, and then went into sort of leadership positions, project management, and then into general management type stuff. And I guess I was also a consultant for about 5 years. So I got a chance to look at a lot of different businesses and work within them. So I experienced a lot of different business cultures, different leadership styles, and all sorts of things. And I found that generally, I feel like the leadership space is a bit lacking. There's a lot of what I call accidental leadership, where people blunder into different situations and cause a lot of impact to the teams and the people around them. So I sort of started thinking, you know what, I'm going to start, writing about this, sharing the way I lead and that sort of thing, sharing my advice. And then it sort of became a bit bigger than that in terms of I started offering coaching services, creating online courses. Obviously, I've got a heap of free content out there like blog posts and podcast episodes, but it sort of turned into a bit of it started off as a hobby and a passion, and then sort of turned into something I thought I could do as a business as well. So I'm still growing it at the moment.
Perfect. I love it. And I like the phrase you said there, accidental leadership. I was in corporate for 7 or 8 years as a management consultant, and I felt many leaders were kind of accidentally placed there because when they weren't quite displaying the traits and the characteristics that you would expect from a leader. And so I see an opportunity out there that you obviously see as well for people to help others improve their leadership styles in the corporate world.
Yeah, definitely. And it's obviously a crowded space. You've got the super celebrity type Brian Tracy's and all that sort of stuff going on, but I think there's I think there's still room for people that want to help others improve, and create better workplaces is sort of where I'm getting at, because I saw a lot of people that were quite miserable going to work every day, and I think it just needs to be better than that. I think people deserve to go to a place where they sort of enjoy their work, or at least they're in a safe environment where they can develop and learn new things.
Yeah, absolutely. Work should be fun, especially with the people that you're with. You should be enjoying the experience rather than dreading it.
Well, that's right. I mean, to the best you can anyway. It's pretty hard, depending on what job you have. Some people have some pretty tough jobs. But I think, particularly the corporate world, which you would have seen a lot of, there's just a lot of room for improvement, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So what are the, it sounds like you had quite a bit of experience in there. What are the tips that you generally give, leaders in positions to improve what they do, on teams and in their leadership positions?
Yep. I think so. There's sort of three, let's call it foundations. I sort of think of it as for what I call thoughtful leadership, which is the first one I'd say is about confidence. So having confidence in your leadership so that people feel comfortable following you. And the more confident you are in your leadership, the less likely you are to doubt yourself, second guess your decisions, backtrack, flip flop on different things. And so that's one key thing that I try to work with people on, is to build their confidence. And leadership can be tricky, and there's all sorts of different teams going on. There's lots of different team dynamics. You'll have individuals in your team that are different from anyone else, and so you'll have that. There's a lot of unique situations out there. So with my coaching, I generally try to tackle those unique problems, because there's sort of no one size fits all solution, really.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one part of it, is confidence. The second part is time management. And I find that to be really critical as like an enabler to good leadership. So, and it's not just about going, okay, I want to get more stuff done so I can work more. It's about finding balance. It's the health and well-being angle as well. Looking after our mental health, looking after the health and the stress levels of our teams. And really, I think good time management, you're focusing on the right things and then executing those things well. So it's not about doing everything on your plate. It's about prioritizing, pushing back on things. And that's where the confidence angle comes in again. Sometimes you have to say no and push back, and that can be challenging. So that's the second part. And the last part really is about developing your perception. So being more perceptive and having empathy for those around you. So they sort of go hand in hand. So it's quite easy to fall into a trap where if you're too busy, you don't support your team, you're not available for your team, you're not present. So I see a lot of leaders who aren't present, and they're distracted with their busy leadership roles and their own personal priorities. And so what you get there is you miss things from your team. And what I mean by that is you might miss development opportunities where people are motivated in different areas and unmotivated in other areas. Or you might see someone coming to work and you might miss the fact that they've been really quiet and withdrawn for the last couple of days because you've been so busy. And maybe that's a sign that something's not going on well at home, or whatever it might be. There's a million examples, but that's a really key aspect, is to be perceptive about how your team are responding, not only to your leadership, but also to just general stuff that's going on around them. So they're really the three parts that I try to work with people on mostly.
Perfect. So confidence, time management, and perception. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. I love it. So, you're in the perception, number 3 in perception, you talked about presence. So how do you go about teaching presence? I feel like that's kind of a difficult thing, unless because it's more of an emotional thing than it is anything else. So how do you go about teaching somebody presence?
Oh, no. So I was referring to teaching them to be present with their teams. You see what I mean?
Okay.
So to be more present in the moment, as in, because a lot of people are distracted, running around busy all day. They're not focusing on supporting their teams or listening and, using the feedback to improve the way they lead, for example. So that was all about just reminding people to be more present. So there's some certain ways to go about that, which is to eliminate distractions. Do your obvious ones like turning your phone off and all this sort of thing. Have organized times where you meet with your team one-to-one, frequent meetings like that. Go into different settings so that you're outside of your busy area where you're going to get interrupted. There's a million and one different ways you can do it. But yeah, that one's about just being more present so you can be more available for your team. Because one thing that often happens is leaders get busy. They start focusing on their own priorities because they want to, they've got their own anxieties and troubles to deal with, and they stop focusing on the people that are actually, doing the work for them, really.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what that one was about.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, my favorite boss from my corporate days, everybody called her the team mom, not derogatorily at all, but just because she was just so aware of what everybody was going through. And she really did focus on our needs. And I felt she was the best leader that I had, throughout my time in corporate. And so I see what you mean. I can see where you're going with the idea of presence and being in the moment, and aware of what your team has actually experienced and is going through.
And it's tough, obviously. And, there's lots of different distractions and different work environments that will make that hard. And leaders themselves are dealing with their own bosses that could be trouble as well. Even doesn't matter if you're the CEO or a frontline worker. you've always got someone you have to please, and a boss you have to report to, whether it's a board or a shareholders or whatever it might be. So there's really no escaping that. So you've got to learn the skills to manage upwards as well, which is quite tricky.
Yep. How about time management? Deciding on priorities is always a difficult thing. So how do you go about teaching people to prioritize?
So use a bunch of different tools. There's a couple of simple ones like the Eisenhower matrix and the urgent important matrix and things like that. Just a few simple tools to get people thinking about urgency and importance of tasks, but also about the longer term consequences of failing to do that work. So I like people to think think longer term. So I try to encourage people to think longer term rather than just thinking short term about what I need to do right now. And they need to start thinking about, okay, what's the impact if I don't do this work? And is it really important? And the way sometimes you go through that stuff is to just really critically assess the tasks that are on your plate and see how much value they're actually getting. And there's some ways you can sort of test those things out. So an example I had a couple of years ago now was I started a new leadership role, and there was someone in my team who was running around busily doing a report at the last minute, and they would send this report out, every month. And they were pretty stressed at this time because they were running late for this particular one. So they were compiling the report, and then I met with them and I said, "Look, what is this report all about?" Because I was quite new to the role. So she told me what it was about, and I said, "Okay, so who gets this report?" And she says, "Well, we send it to this distribution list every month, and all these people are on the list." So I thought, okay. So I had a look at the list, and we got the IT guys to look at the distribution list, see who's on it. Turns out a lot of the people had left the business, so they weren't actually consuming this. Yeah, and it's things like that, and that's just a little example of something that is taking up people's time, making people stressed, but is not valuable at all, because you are literally doing things you've always done. You're just doing them the way you've always done them and not thinking about them. So it's really about taking a critical eye to the tasks that are on your plate, particularly when you've got constraints. So you don't have as much, don't have time, or you don't have as many resources as you might need. And starting to have conversations with the people who are your stakeholders to flesh out, okay, what's really important here? I've got these 5 priorities. I can only do sort of these 3, I think. How's that going to work? And it's about having those tough conversations as well. So sometimes being able to push back, say no without really saying no, those sorts of things where, you still want to appear like a team player. So pushing back, there's lots of different ways you can do it. And that's another thing I try to focus on as well. Get people to not just accept everything that's thrown at them, but to start thinking about the well-being of themselves and their team, and starting to push back and forcing people to prioritize their thinking as well. Because it's easy to just delegate a million things if the people below you are just taking them on without questioning you at all. And that's a risky slope as well to get into. I sort of covered a lot of different things there, but hopefully I answered it.
Yeah. You're right. When I've been on teams where people just don't, the manager was kind of dictatorial, and would just tell people what to do, and people just accepted me like, whatever, he's the manager, I'll just do it. But it was obvious that it was like that. We shouldn't actually be doing that. That's probably not the best use of our time, but no one did anything. So that's just what happened. So, so being able to push back, that's super important. And also you were mentioning, the prioritizing things that kind of have more of a long-term impact. That made me think of, what was that one really popular book? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
And they talked about the quadrants and all that stuff. And it's really difficult to go, I can't remember what the quadrants were, but one quadrant was basically like you're on the urgent and
important.
Yeah, urgency and importancy. Yeah. That's it. So it's difficult to stay out of the urgent and non-important category for me. Because the urgency, for some reason, I just tend to go towards urgency. That's what I prioritize.
And that gives you that fire because it's got to be done now. So,
but it doesn't matter if it's important or not important. That's where I get stuck. Is that it's urgent, so I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. Let's do it. but then I don't take that seconds, the few seconds that I need in order to identify, okay, this actually is important. I can let this urgent thing go by the wayside and work on this not urgent but important task. That'll have more you know uh, more benefit to me in the long run.
Exactly, or fewer consequences, whichever way you look at it.
Yep.
If you let something slip by because it has few consequences, then that's another good thing you can do. But yeah, you really want to be in that on that quadrant. Yeah, you want to be on the important, not urgent quadrant, which is what I like to refer to as the superstar quadrant, because basically that means you're planning all your stuff. That's where you have important stuff to do, but you've got time to do it well. And that's where you'll come across looking like you're on top of your game, because you can plan things, you have time to develop them in a way that has, to increase the quality, and then everyone will regard you as, someone who delivers really good stuff.
Yep. Yeah, and it is. Yeah, you're right. It is that the time that you give to a task to allow it to be high quality that kind of does produce the high quality work. When you're not like pushed and have that urgent sense behind you when you just want to get it done. Instead, you're taking your time, you're getting things going step by step and actually getting it done.
Yeah. And then there's obviously the flip side of that is the perfection angle as well. So you don't want to be stuck in that trap either.
Right.
there's two sides to everything, right?
Too many traps out there to get
definitely
down.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you're in Australia. That's where you're in Perth. That's where your home base is. Do you do this work internationally, or are you more focused, here and there in Australia?
No, I'm sort of focusing internationally. I'm trying to keep it broad, rather than with the local market. And the reason is, I get a lot of, I've got a lot of readers and listeners from the US in particular and the UK. And a lot of my coaching clients have been from America, actually. So it sort of suits me because I can work fairly flexibly, and I do evening coaching and that sort of thing. So that works quite well. So yeah, there's been a variety of people in different businesses, healthcare businesses and finance businesses and all sorts. But yeah, a lot in the US and the UK.
Nice. I bet that the time zone works out for you because you can just do it in the evening and slip on
exactly.
bed. Yep.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, it's quite good.
So, when you first start working with someone in a coaching session, what are the first few things that you do to kind of get them down the right path?
Yep. The first thing I do is I really start talking about the critical issue, right? Which is about what is really bothering them, or what is the real thing they want to achieve. So, it might not be, a lot of people go into coaching sessions with, I want to solve all these problems. But sometimes it's good to have I want to achieve these goals as well, not just solve all problems. But I think the critical issue is a good one to focus on to start with, which is, what's stressing them, what's frustrating them, because often those stop you from thinking long-term anyway, because you've got these immediate things, burning issues you want to solve. So I start to get those out of the way. And it's really about teasing out the impact. And you do have to be careful not to fall for the quickest issue that people raise with you as well, because people will raise certain things and assume that this thing over here is the real issue. But once you tease it out by asking different questions, and you really sort of go, well, is that really impacting you too hard? What's the impact this is having on your life? And a lot of people will sort of start to think a bit more deeply about it and think, oh, actually, it doesn't really matter that much. And then you've got to go through the different issues and target the real one that's the biggest one that's going to get you the bang for buck, really. And then after that, it's about after you've sort of landed on a good issue that they want to solve, or a good opportunity they want to take, it's about looking at the best case future for that problem or for the goal. So so an example question might be, if this sort of thing if this issue was solved, what would that look like and feel like? And to get people imagining that positive future, which is quite important to have them visualize different aspects of it. And sometimes you can go sort of quite detailed. So you might say, okay, Gabe, imagine a scene where this problem is solved. And you try to get them to actually think about, what are they seeing? What are they hearing? What are they touching? What are they smelling, tasting, all this sort of stuff, right? And it actually makes it more real for them. some people struggle with that bit because some people are easier, are better just talking, and they struggle, and they're very practical, and they struggle to generate a nice scene of, I'm here, I'm having a glass of wine, it's delicious, or whatever, stuff like that. And then other people just get into it. They love it. They're more sort of artistic, and they go, oh yeah, I'm in this beautiful park, and all these sort of things, and I can hear the birds chirping and all that sort of stuff. But that, when you can get them into detail like that, it starts to feel, I think, more real to them, and it starts to, in their mind, start to build to something they really want to achieve. And then after that, it's about going through for action. So what are the actionable steps we can take to go and get you to that place? And that can be quite small things. And that would be, you would start doing that for the initial session that you're in. And if you've got multiple sessions planned, you'd keep them accountable during the time between sessions. And you would go, okay, how did you go with that action? Have you done it yet? How's it going? What's holding you back? That accountability is pretty key as well, a big part of the coaching, because without it, it's really just, you're only held accountable to yourself. And often, if we're just held accountable to ourselves, some people have super strong will and willpower, and they can do all that stuff, but other people need that kick to go, oh yeah, I was meant to give you that thing and I haven't done it yet. I need to get onto that. Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's sort of a snapshot of the process.
Yeah, I like. So it sounds like you focus more. At the outset, you focus on the main issue that whatever person has, and that makes sense because when you're looking for coaching, when you're looking, or any time in life, and the problem is really, and the stress is really the thing that is keeping you from being able to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Because the stress. I mean, at least I'm kind of referencing my own experience here, but. When I'm super stressed, I just can't think of a solution. I'm more just trying to solve the problem. But there's just too much stress, and I can't get that step back that I need in order to identify what the actual solution is to the problem.
Definitely.
So you kind of help people take that step back and identify, this is the problem. This is the primary issue. And these are the few, the steps that we can take to actually, identify it and make forward movement on solving the problem.
Yeah, and it could be a long-term problem or a long-term goal that will take far more than one session to work on. So some of the actions, you try to get actions coming out of every session, just so that there's something to focus on to move them forward, even if they're not going to be able to solve the problem immediately. Because often problems are big and they take a while, or goals are quite big. So the other side of it is to do long-term planning as well, in terms of that sort of 3 to 5 year vision statement or vision work to go, okay, where do you want to be at that time? Can we develop some sub goals working backwards of things you could achieve to get towards that vision that you're imagining as well? So that's probably less on the issue front and more on the long-term vision and goal setting.
Perfect.
But like I said as well, you've got to be careful not to fall for that first issue that they say is the most important. And one of the main benefits of coaching, particularly with someone who you don't know, who's not in your workplace, so if I'm coaching leaders, I don't know them generally, and I don't know who they work with. I don't know their boss, and I don't know their work environment. And so when they tell me things, I can assess it from a completely independent angle. I mean, I'm not in there. I don't have emotions about their situation. So I sort of, that's really handy as well, because you can get that independent point of view. Whereas if you talk to your friend or your close colleague, they're sort of wrapped in it. And they sometimes have trouble, getting their head above water and being able to see clearly. So that's another benefit. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, you can kind of bring the detachment that you need in order to find the accurate solution.
Yeah, definitely. And it's sort of detachment in a way that it's detachment so you can identify what the real problem might be, but it's also empathizing, because people are also struggling and going through some tough stuff in the workplace as well. And obviously, if I'm coaching them, it's probably not all roses for them. And so, yeah, so you got to be mindful of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, Ben, we are at the end of the episode. So we're going to go into the quick question round to start us off. I always like to ask about books. I'm a big bookie. So if you could give recommendations for 2 books, one book for your favorite business book and one for your favorite just life wisdom book, what would they be?
Okay, for business book, wow, it sort of crosses over business and life wisdom. But Seth Godin's The Dip, you might have come
Oh
across.
yeah, yeah.
I really like that book because that's sort of, and the whole premise is that it helps you work out when you should stick with something or quit. And his whole thing is, well, if you quit something, it's not necessarily bad, because if you're quitting doing the wrong thing, then that's great, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the trick is, should you keep going and working on it, even though you don't seem to be seeing results right now? And are you in just a little dip, and eventually it's going to accelerate, or is this the time when you should call it quits? So it's just a bit of a thought exercise, helping you to go through that, which
Okay.
I love.
Perfect.
And the other one, I guess, on a similar theme, these have been really helpful trying to build my business, because it's hard work, obviously. It's like, building a podcast. It's hard. It's got to be consistent effort over time. And it's the Slight Edge by Jeff Olson is
Oh
another
yeah.
book that I quite
Great one.
like. And it's simple. The premise is simple, but that incremental effort over time leading to big values. And you would see it in your podcasting.
Yeah.
You might seem like nothing's going on. Every episode you put out, nothing's really happening, and then all of a sudden, bang, you see the results, because you've been consistently putting in the effort for months or years or whatever it might be.
The Kaizen principle, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
So
So
they're my
next,
two, I think. Yeah, can those count as my two?
yeah,
I
that
reckon.
works.
They cross over both categories.
Yep. Nope. I love it. Next question. Habits are the foundation for our life. So I like to ask people, what is the habit that you feel contributes the most to your success today?
I think, without a doubt, it would be getting up early in the morning and spending time developing Thoughtful Leader in some way every day. So whether that, Monday to Friday, I do that. So before my day job, I will spend an hour and a half to 2 hours on Thoughtful Leader work before I go to work, because if things get busy, you've done that for the day. So you're putting in that effort every day on that. That would be probably the best habit I've got, is that consistent effort.
Going back to that incremental work in the Slight Edge. I love it.
Yeah, you sort of have to, I think. Otherwise, it seems a bit daunting, right? You've got to be able to chip away at it, particularly if you're building something on the side, and it's hard work. It needs persistence.
Yeah, for sure. Building on the side is I tried to do that for a long time, and it just didn't work, and so I had to cut the cord and jump right into what I was doing.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'll get there at some point. Yeah, I'm just building to it. I'm building to
Yeah. Awesome. So if you could give yourself, the Ben who is just starting out in corporate, give him one piece of advice going forward, what would that be?
Well, I think if it was for me in the Thoughtful Leader sense, I would say get out there quicker with what you're trying to do. So organize to partner with people, spread the word about what you're doing faster, rather than doing it alone because it's easy to get, I'm going to go write 1 million blog posts, but I'm not really talking to anyone. I'm just publishing stuff, but I'm not going out and talking. I'm not talking to people like Gabe on the podcast, helping get the word out. It's just, you're sort of doing it alone. And I think there's a tendency for people to do that. So I would say, first thing, just start getting out there quicker and broader with your audience, and trying to spread the word as much as you can.
I love it. Get
Just
the
speeds
word
things
out.
up.
Yep. And it is amazing once you start doing that, things just come out of the woodwork. I mean, so my first podcast, I started, my actual job is in real estate. I do real estate investing.
Yeah,
so I started
I
there. Yep. And I started a podcast, not really I didn't really have a huge ROI goal or anything like that on it, but it's amazing how things just kind of pop out of the woodwork. People start reaching out. They're like, "Hey, I saw you on blah blah blah," and yeah. Once you start pushing your content out there, once you start pushing yourself out there, and really putting value first, it's amazing what comes from that. So, great piece of advice to give your younger self.
Yeah.
The next
That's
one.
a big difference. Sorry, go on.
Yep. Next question is for the listeners. I'm sure there are people out there who have, are listening, watching, and they're like, I want to reach out to Ben. I want to get in contact with them. So if that person did want to get in contact with you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Definitely the best way is to just go to www.thoughtfulleader.com. And that's where my website is. That's where there's a lot of free content on there, obviously, links to the podcast, links to my social profiles and things as well, contact pages so you can email me directly. Yeah, that's definitely the best place to go.
Awesome. Thoughtfulleader.com. If you want to reach out to Ben, go to thoughtfulleader.com. That's a really good URL, by the way. I'm always, I always like
I was
congratulate
surprised
people. Yeah.
when I got it, because I got it maybe 5 years ago, and I was surprised it was available.
Yeah. I'm surprised too. I own probably, I don't know, probably 40 URLs. And whenever I see a good one, I'm like, dang, good job. Props. Awesome. Well, Ben, again, thank you for hopping on the show. I appreciated our conversation. For everybody who came along with us on this journey today, thank you guys for showing up and for just being here. Again, the best way to support the show is just to subscribe, like, and share with your friends and family. And we look forward to having you on the next episode.
Thank you guys for sticking with us on another episode of the Pursuing Greatness podcast. I hope you got a lot of value out of that guest. Again, the best way to support the show is just to subscribe, like, and share with your friends and family. Also, check out pursuinggreatnesspodcast.com if you want to get more information about what we do and what we offer. I hope you guys have a great day and keep living in integrity with yourselves. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode coming shortly.